Hi, this is Marty Lemons. I live in Cornelius, North Carolina, and I wanted to share with you what I've been going through the past 8 years with my Charcot Marie-Tooth disease, which all started when I was out mowing my son's yard in the summertime where it was pretty hot and he could not be out in the heat due to his multiple sclerosis. So I was out right by the mailbox and saw a fire ant mound and didn't think anything about it. Walked right next to it, and within the next 3 or 4 steps realized they were all up and down the bottom part of from the knees down, biting me repeatedly. So I went over to the edge of the house there and took the garden hose, got them all off. And then within 5 minutes, I started losing the hearing in my left ear and started having trouble breathing. So I called my wife and she said, being in the medical field, she said, you need to go to the urgent care immediately. Leave the lawnmower right there in the yard. So I did, and as soon as I got there, they was having a lot more trouble breathing. And so they, pumped me full of, I think it was Benadryl. Gave me 3 or 4 shots of that. And anyway, that got it kind of settled down for a while. But within the next month, I started developing all kinds of problems. I was having trouble walking properly, and which I didn't know at the time. When I was picking my leg up, my foot was dropping because I had already lost the muscles to keep my feet upright. So the foot would fall down and then the toes would fold under, and I started falling a lot. So we ended up getting worse and worse. And by the time probably 3 months came around, I was pretty much having to walk with a cane. Was having many falls and couldn't open a bottle of water. Didn't have the finger or hand strength to open up a Ziploc bag. Was having trouble getting in and out of my car door because I couldn't do the keys. Having trouble starting the car. So one of the guys at work put in a remote start, a remote door lock for me. So I kept telling people, naturally with the male ego, well, I'm just getting old. But strangely enough, the family members and stuff really didn't put 2 and 2 together. And then it kept getting worse, and where I was working, assembling subwoofers for Sundown Audio, I got to where I couldn't pick up the 60-pound magnets on the back of the subwoofers. So I got them to get a hydraulic lift cart so I could slide them off of the pallets, put them on the cart, and then use my foot to pump it up and get it up to the level of the table. But then I got to where I couldn't pick up a screw off of the table because I'd lost, all of my touch and destroyed all the nerves. So anyway, went to the first neurologist, and the first thing she did was have me take off my shoes and socks, and started with a safety pin and stuck it in the top of my big toe, and I never felt anything till she got above my knees. So she said, we've got big problems. So I did the nerve conduction test and ended up going to a second neurologist who did more tests and found out that I had basically lost 95% of my nerves in my arms and legs. by that point, about 3 or 4, maybe 4 months into it. So then we decided that the neurologist decided that I needed to be taking IV infusions. And the IV infusions was one bag mainly of sugar water. The other component was good antibodies collected from 1,000 people. So subsequently, it was like $17,000 a bag and ended up being $244,000 a year, which Medicaid paid for, thankfully. So I continued for the first 2.5 years. I had to end up quitting work after about the 5th month or so into it. Luckily, I went on ahead and immediately got disability. Unfortunately, the first payment did not get there to me until 5 months. So I went 5 months with 0 income, which completely wiped us out. And then some. So I did 2.5 years of IV infusions, and after you would do one, say on a Tuesday, you spent the rest of the day in bed. You spent 23 hours in bed the next day. So, and that was 1 to 2 times each week I was doing that. I didn't think it was doing me any good at the time, but I didn't know any different. So after 2.5 years, I finally got really tired of it, and I had no life because I was spending most of my life in bed all the time due to the infusions. So I went back to my regular doctor and I said, I want to go someplace really good, Vanderbilt, Mayo Clinic, somewhere. So he said, I know somebody that I went to college with who is head of the neurology department at Duke Medical Center. I said, okay, that'll be a good start. So we sent all the documentation over to him, and we drove about 2.5 hours over there, sat down with him, and he said, I see that they failed to do one blood test on you, which I'm going to do. And he said, there's a possibility that this is hereditary type, and the blood test will tell this. So he said, I'll call you at the end of the week. So he did, and he said, I got good news and I got bad news. He says, the good news, I was right. He said, you have a gene duplication, which tends to cancel each other out, and this gene is called the PMP-22, which stands for peripheral myelin protein. And so I had 2 of those. So the protein is what keeps the myelin coating on the nerves in good shape. So when I got bit by the fire ants, they basically shot formic acid into you, which is specifically designed over centuries or millions of years, to specifically go in and kill all the nerves of whatever it's shooting formic acid into. And I did research on it and found out that back in 1899, there was an English explorer down in the Congo, and he started losing his expedition members to the natives with their blowgun darts. So after he befriended them, he found out that the only thing they used in their darts were crushed up fire ants and coconut palm oil. So it was really pretty bad. My second neurologist said he did his PhD paper on a lady who was attacked by fire ants, and she was paralyzed completely and had to learn how to communicate by blinking her eyes. So it can not only be deadly, it can be extremely bad when you're completely 100% paralyzed. So it can be really nasty. So it just so happened that when they shot that into me, my protein in the coating of the nerves, it had no defense since there was 2 of them. And so basically the formic acid went in there and just destroyed most all the nerves. So anyway, I got to do like he said, I got to quit taking the infusions, which kind of gave me my life back, where I could go out, spend about a good half of the day upright. The next big problem was, since I'd lost so many muscles, that the cushion muscles in my rear end were gone. So that meant that the two sitting bones on the bottom of the skeleton were pressing and had pressure points down there, which was causing large amounts of pain. So I tried many different kinds of cushion: air, gel, foam, combinations, air alternating cushions, everything you could think of, and still couldn't get over the pain issues. So I continued on, more falls, and today I'm up to 39 falls so far. So January 2019, I guess it was 2 Januaries ago, I started having trouble when I was talking on the ham radio with running out of air when I was talking. So I just happened to mention that to my regular doctor, and he said, okay, that's not good. And he said, we need to take you across the hall and do an x-ray. So he came back and he said, you've got a part of your right lung that's not showing up on the x-ray. He said, that's bad. He says, I need to have a radiologist look at it. So he did, and he called me back about 2 hours later, and he said, they want you at the hospital right away. And so I went down there, and they did a scan on me. I guess it was a CT scan, and came out, went outside, sat down in the hallway. The CT scan guy came out and said, you're going directly upstairs right now. He says, you've got a large blood clot in your right lung, and he says, we need to get you on blood thinners within a half an hour, which they did. So I spent the next 2.5 days laying in the hospital, and so got out of there. And so we said, well, I guess we need to go back over to Duke and explain to them what happened. So we did that, and they did nerve conduction test on my diaphragm muscles, which lift the lungs up and down. And they found that the right diaphragm was completely dead. So don't know why the body decided to destroy only one half, but it did. So basically it rendered my right lung pretty much useless. So then we started doing lung efficiency and volume test, where you basically breathe into a hose as long and as hard as you can. So at that point, a couple years ago, it was about 50%. So every 6 months I get that done, and it's been going down about 7-8% every time. So now I'm down to 30% left. And if you use that on a linear regression, then that means that if it goes down 8% every 6 months, then in a year and a half or so, I'm going to be at 0. So we have discovered that all of the nerve destruction has gone into my core, and it is destroying things in my core. So the muscles between the ribs, just as if you eat a rack of ribs, all of those muscles, they're called the intercostal muscles, are starting to go. And that's when I also, about a year ago, started having major back pain problems. And that was because I had lost the muscles to keep the spine in alignment. So we ended up, figuring out, hey, we're going to have to do these lung volume and efficiency tests every 6 months, and we're just going to have to keep a track on it and see what it does. If it keeps going down every 6 months, about 8%, then, we know I got about a year and a half left. So otherwise, once it gets down, the blood oxygen levels, which had always stayed up in the 98, 99%, have now, especially within the last year, have dropped from 98 down to 93 the last time I got it tested. So my body is not able to, my lungs are not able to, filter the blood and keep the oxygen going in them. So I just want to make this video to basically tell everybody what can happen, not only from fire ants, but also if you happen to get Charcot Marie-Tooth disease, which is a hereditary disease. And I asked, my parents didn't have it, my grandparents, and they said, well, it could have been many generations back where, your specific family type, developed this PMP-22 gene and caused somewhere down along through the line, in the wonderful world of biology, there was a gene duplication. You just happen to have it. And the one neurologist over at Duke said, let's look at your feet to see if you have a real high arch. And sure enough, I've always had a very high arch. So she said, okay, that's strike one. Strike two is how fast could you run when you were in school? And I said, well, I was always the very slowest person in the entire school. Even the great big heavy-set guy could run faster, And I remember the PE coach, running beside of me, screaming in my ear, telling me I wasn't trying. She said, well, that's characteristic. That's like number two, So anyway, she got done and said, if I could have gone back in junior high school and saw you in PE class, saw your real high arch, watched you run stuff, she said, I could have probably picked you out and said, we immediately want to do, testing to see if he has Charcot Marie-Tooth. And she said, I would have probably been, 100% right on. So even, I got this at age 57, 58. It's just like a car wreck or a heart attack where 1 minute you're perfectly fine and the next moment you're never going to be the same and you've lost all your health. So I'll let this be my first video. I've only done my 4 videos so far, and my friend Matt Harper, who goes by Big Matt with 2 G's on YouTube, he is a specialist in reel-to-reel stereo tape decks. And he encouraged me to start doing videos. He keeps telling me I'm a very interesting person to him. And he says, you've got a lot of stories to tell. So start making some videos while you still can. So just to make sure that Big Matt has plenty of videos after I'm gone, I'm starting to make some stereo videos. And I'll be doing probably some rocket launching videos, trying to get the grandkids into doing model rockets. So I'm working my way down my bucket list now. I marked 2 of them off about 3 weeks ago. Got about 3 more left. So I'll make a few more videos. Thanks for watching. If there is somewhere a advertisement in this thing, I apologize. I don't have this all figured out. I just made my first video 2 days ago. So hopefully we'll be ad-free. All right, catch you next time. Bye.